I was standing neat in the cool water of my private lake, testing a new lure I'd picked up the day before when 5 sheriff's deputies pulled into my driveway. The morning mist was still hanging over Crystal Haven Lake like a soft blanket, and I'd been enjoying the peaceful quiet until I heard the crunch of tires on gravel and the static of police radios. "Sir, we received a call about an incident," the lead deputy said, approaching cautiously while I stood there in my camo Crocs and fishing vest, pole still in hand. Before I could respond, a shrill voice cut through the morning air like fingernails on a chalkboard. "There he is. That's him. He's destroying our community standards." I turned to see Patricia Peton, our HOA president and self-proclaimed guardian of all things proper, marching down the slope toward us in her designer gardening shoes. Her face was red with righteous fury, and she was waving a laminated piece of paper like it was a warrant for my arrest. "This man," she announced dramatically to the deputies, "is flagrantly violating HOA regulations." I put up a sign right there. She pointed to a homemade sign she'd zip-tied to my oak tree that read, "No fishing by HOA decree," in what looked like glitter pen. The deputy looked from her to me, then to the sign, clearly trying to process the situation. "Ma'am, what exactly is the violation here?" Patricia puffed up like an angry peacock. "He's fishing in our lake. It's unsightly and disturbs the aesthetic harmony of our waterfront properties." I set my rod down carefully and waded back to shore. "Officer, I'm Jake Morrison. I own this property and the lake." Patricia here seems to have forgotten that minor detail. The deputy's eyebrows went up. "You own the lake?" "Every square inch of it," I confirmed, pulling out my phone to show him the property deed I kept safe for situations exactly like this. My grandfather bought it in 1972, and I inherited it when he passed 5 years ago. The HOA has recreational access through a lease agreement, but they don't own anything. Patricia's face went from red to purple. "That's impossible. The HOA controls all common areas." "A lake isn't a common area when it's privately owned, ma'am," the deputy explained patiently. He turned to me with an apologetic look. "Sorry to bother you, sir. Seems like this is a civil matter, not a criminal one." As the deputies prepared to leave, Patricia shrieked with such intensity that a flock of ducks took flight from the far shore. "You can't just leave. He's violating our community standards." "Ma'am," the lead deputy said firmly, "calling 911 for a false emergency is a misdemeanor. I suggest you handle this through proper channels." After they left, Patricia stood on my property for another 10 minutes, alternating between glaring at me and furiously typing on her phone. "This isn't over, Jake Morrison," she declared before stomping back to her golf cart. "The HOA board will hear about this." I should have known that was just the beginning. Patricia Peton wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. At 63 years old, recently retired from her job as a middle school vice principal, she channeled all her disciplinary energy into running the Crystal Haven Estates HOA like her personal kingdom. Within 24 hours of the sheriff's visit, Patricia launched what she called Operation Lakefront Compliance in a mass email to all residents. She installed 4 more no fishing signs around the lake, including 2 directly on my private dock. The signs had evolved, too. Now, they were professionally printed with the HOA logo and included fines for violations ranging from $50 to $500. I removed the ones on my property and tossed them in my garage, planning to return them at the next HOA meeting. But Patricia wasn't done. She started a social media campaign on the neighborhood Facebook page, posting photos of me fishing with captions like, "Is this the image we want for Crystal Haven?" And "Some residents think they're above community standards." The irony was that I'd been nothing but a good neighbor for 5 years. I maintained my property meticulously, never made noise past 9 p.m., and even let the HOA use my dock for their annual fishing derby fundraiser. But Patricia had decided that my morning fishing routine was somehow an affront to her vision of suburban perfection. Things escalated when she convinced her loyal followers, a group of bored retirees I'd mentally dubbed Patricia's Patrol, to start monitoring my fishing activities. They would kayak past my cove slowly, taking photos and videos. One woman, Margaret Holloway, brought binoculars and a notebook documenting what types of fish I caught and how long I stayed on the water. "This is getting ridiculous," my wife Emma said one morning as we watched a drone hovering over our dock. "Is it even legal?" I was reviewing the HOA lease agreement when I found it. The clause that would change everything. Section 12, subsection C clearly stated, "Property owner reserves the right to revoke lake access privileges with 30 days written notice if HOA policies interfere with owner's riparian rights." "Emma," I said, showing her the document, "I think it's time we reminded Patricia who actually owns this lake." The next HOA meeting was held in the community center, a beige building that smelled perpetually of coffee and disappointment. I arrived to find Patricia at the podium presenting a PowerPoint titled, "Maintaining Our Aquatic Assets." As you can see from these photos, she clicked through blurry shots of me fishing. Certain residents are treating our lake like their personal playground. This affects property values and disturbs the tranquil environment we've worked so hard to create. I raised my hand. "Patricia, I'd like to remind everyone that the lake is privately owned by me." She waved dismissively. "You may own the technical rights, but this is a community resource. We have aesthetic standards to maintain, which is why I'm proposing a new bylaw," she continued, pulling up a slide with dense legal text. "No fishing shall be permitted within view of any HOA common area or member property between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. The vote passed 17-5 with most residents either absent or abstaining. Patricia's smile was triumphant as she banged her gavel. "Motion carried. Jake, you'll need to cease your disruptive fishing immediately or face fines." I stood up slowly, pulling out a manila envelope I'd prepared for this moment. "Patricia, members of the board, I'm officially serving you with a 30-day notice of lease termination for lake access." The room went silent. Someone dropped a coffee cup. "You can't do that," Patricia sputtered. "Actually, I can. Section 12, subsection C of the lease agreement you signed. Since the HOA has enacted policies that interfere with my riparian rights, I'm exercising my option to revoke access." I handed the notice to the board's secretary and walked out, leaving chaos in my wake. The termination notice hit the neighborhood like a tsunami. Within hours, my phone was blowing up with texts and calls. The HOA's summer calendar revolved around the lake, paddleboard yoga, sunset kayaking, the 4th of July boat parade. All of it would be gone in 30 days. Patricia tried damage control first. She showed up on my door with a store-bought pie and her best fake smile. "Jake, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Surely, we can work something out." "I'm open to discussion," I said, not inviting her in. "Rescind the fishing ban and remove all the signs, and we can talk about a new lease agreement." Her smile flickered, but the community voted. I can't just overturn democracy. Then I can't overturn my notice. 29 days left, Patricia. She tried legal threats next, hiring a lawyer who sent a strongly worded letter claiming the lease couldn't be terminated for frivolous reasons. My lawyer responded with a simple note: "Property rights aren't frivolous. See you in court if necessary." As the deadline approached, the HOA fractured. The lake life contingent, mainly younger families who'd bought homes specifically for water access, turned against Patricia. Someone started a petition to recall her as president. Mystery signs appeared overnight. "Patricia sank our summer and give us our lake back." Patricia doubled down, sending daily emails about standing firm against bullies and protecting our community values. She even tried to organize a land-based activities committee to replace lake events. Nobody showed up to the first meeting. With 5 days left, she made a desperate play. I woke up to find she'd installed a new sign at the lake's edge, HOA Historical Waterfront, protected by community heritage laws. She'd apparently decided that if she couldn't ban my fishing, she'd try to claim the lake as a historical resource. I responded by installing my own signs around the entire perimeter. Private property, no trespassing violators will be prosecuted. I also added security cameras and no-joke legal notices about trespassing fines. On day 30, I padlocked the HOA boat storage shed and the swimming platform they'd installed the previous year. Patricia called another emergency meeting, but only 4 people attended. Even her loyal supporters had abandoned ship. That's when she made her final mistake. Late that evening, I heard splashing and saw a figure in the moonlight paddling frantically on an inflatable flamingo float. Patricia, in her desperation, was trying to stage some sort of protest by illegally accessing the lake. I grabbed my phone and started recording as she paddled toward the center of the lake, shouting something about civil disobedience and water rights. Then karma intervened. A wind gust caught the flamingo. She overcorrected, and the whole thing flipped. She emerged sputtering, covered in lake weeds, mascara running down her face like a horror movie character. "Patricia," I called out, still filming. "You're trespassing. I'm calling the real police this time, not 911 for a fishing dispute." She swam to shore and trudged up the bank. Defeated, the video was already uploading to the neighborhood Facebook page when the police arrived. The next morning, an emergency board meeting was called. Patricia didn't attend. She was dealing with a trespassing citation and a $500 fine. The board voted unanimously to remove her as president and issued a formal apology to me. They asked if we could negotiate a new lease agreement. I agreed, but with conditions. The new lease included a property rights respect clause and required any HOA rule affecting the lake to be approved by me first. I also instituted a $50 monthly maintenance fee for lake access. The money would go to actual lake maintenance and conservation, not Patricia's aesthetic projects. Patricia's final email to the community was a masterpiece of delusion titled, "My vision was misunderstood." It rambled for 3 pages about her pioneering efforts to elevate community standards and how small minds couldn't comprehend her forward-thinking leadership. She sold her house 3 months later and moved to Desert Springs, a golf community where, according to her real estate listing, the water features are purely decorative and professionally maintained. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she tried to run for their HOA board, but lost when they found out about the lake incident. The trespassing fine was $500, but the real cost to Patricia was her reputation. The video of her flamingo fiasco got over 10,000 views on Nextdoor, and she became a cautionary tale in HOA Facebook groups across the state. Someone even made a meme, "Don't be a Patricia. Know your property lines." Her reaction to the fine was the last thing anyone heard from her in Crystal Haven. Standing in the courthouse, clutching her citation, she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, $500 for standing up for principles. This is exactly what's wrong with America. Then she stormed out, her flamingo float deflated in more ways than